Hey everyone, it's good to be back to Seoul. It's been a few years for me. And thanks a lot for staying to the last panel of the conference. I think one of the important traits in crypto is that you need to survive. And you guys survived to the last panel of the program. So yeah, I think you'll make it in crypto.
Good.
Yeah. So my name is Loi. I started as a researcher, in blockchain back in 2013 in Singapore, and founded a company called Kyber Network, one of the most, earliest DEX in the space. And in 2021, I stepped down. Last year, I started something called Caliber, which is a venture builder. So I went through the journey from a PhD student to founder, and now helping new founders, right? And I think the whole purpose of the panel today is to learn from our investor here, how they are doing with the market and with their investment, and if they can share any insight or how they work when they look at the founders, look at the new investment. So that I'm sure a lot of the founders down there are actually trying to raise fund from everyone soon, right? So they will know how to work with the investor better. But before that, why don't every one of us just spend a couple of sentences to introduce about yourself, your fund, and how you are doing at the fund. Yeah. Ed?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Ed. I'm a founder and investor, so I'm in crypto since 2012. Actually, I think I did the first crypto conference in Europe in 2012, and we were 70 people then at the conference. And so one of the companies I founded was Energy Web Foundation. I ran it for a few years, and then I changed into a supervisory role. Then Sovereign Nature is a conservancy. And then I founded a fund called Skytail Ventures with a few friends, some co-founders of Ethereum actually. That was in 2016, and so I'm advisor there now. So on this panel, I have actually three different views on investing, because on the one side is from the Skytail, which is a classical crypto VC, and I'm investing privately, which is a completely different view than from the venture fund. And I'm representing here a company that is Dark Forest. It's a market maker, so which is I also co-founded that, but I'm this also completely different view. So I'm changing between the views. What I will have to say is is it my private view or is it the fund's view, or yeah.
Hey everyone, my name is Augie. I'm an investor with CMT Digital. CMT Digital is a 28-year-old trading and investment firm based out of the US. We've been investing in the space for around 8 years. We've raised 3 funds, and we partnered with over 100 companies in the space. I'm a partner, and I also head up our Asia operations, which means I spend most of my time in this part of the world. Before that, I was leading crypto for Sequoia, Southeast Asia. Great to be here.
Hey everyone, I'm Dani. I'm one of the partners at MetaWeb Ventures, so focusing on really early stage Web3 startups. I got started in crypto in 2017, working for the early days of Consensus and Infura, so coming from an infrastructure background. And I got started in investing by doing some angel investment and advisors early on, and joined MetaWeb a few years ago. So excited to be here.
Hey everyone, my name is Steve. I'm a co-founder managing partner of Neoclassic Capital. We are early stage Web3 VC, focusing on US, Japan, and Korea markets. We invested in consumer and financial service. And before that, I worked at Block Tower Capital, which is crypto fund in US for 5 years. And before I worked at Goldman Sachs for 10 years in Japan and Singapore office.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's good that the panelists come from different background and also represent different market sector, right? So let's kick off with the first question. What are the fundamentals of the project, of the investment when you make an investment into a new project? Can you share a little bit?
Yeah,
probably from you. Yeah, Steve.
So fundamental, what kind of investment we make? So as I mentioned, our focus is consumer and financial service. And compared to many other US funds, I think our differentiation is we focusing on applications. So our thesis is in next bull cycle, we believe that with the amazing infrastructure people worked on for the last 5 years, we believe that there's some application that out of financial service and consumer sectors So that's what we are focusing on. Within these two sectors, on the financial service, we're gonna focusing on derivatives, or RWA, and the lending and borrowing space. But on more the consumer side that we are very excited about is the gaming and IP entertainment, and the social kind of sector is something that we're gonna be focusing on. Because even though there are a lot of amazing infrastructure is built by more Western founders, no offense to Asian founders, but it's like that. And I think Asia has such a strong potential to grab on terms of the consumer that has the crypto knowledge, if we're gonna leverage and use the service on crypto. So on next bull cycle, we believe that within consumer sectors, there will be some apps or dApps that the Web2 people or non-crypto people might enjoy. So that's something that we wanna actually invest before that happens.
I think for me, fundamentals really come down to, are we building anything of value? And like what you are building, is it better than something that could be built using existing Web2 technology? And if the answer is no, then you're just building crypto for crypto's sake, and it's a circle. But for me, it really comes down to that.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been shared. I think maybe one additional lens to this question. I mean, when we think about evaluating companies from a fundamental point of view, at the seed stage, and I'm getting a little bit of deja vu because I think we talked about this last year also, but I think the most important things, in my opinion, are the team, the market, and any sort of differentiation or unique insight, right? And really the rationale for that is there's obviously a lot of unknowns when it comes to very early stage businesses, and you can drive yourself crazy asking yourself, well, what's the business model? What's the GTM? What's the unit economics? What's this? What's that? And all of those are very important questions. But what is the most important thing that you must solve for at seed when you're investing? I would say it's, do I have the best team? Are they going after a very large market? And are they doing something slightly different versus everybody else? That, in my opinion, is good enough. And that might be another lens when you think about pitching to VCs, what to optimize for.
Yeah, I mean, if I would say from Dark Forest perspective, from market maker, it's very trend driven, because a market maker is very volume driven. There it is really actually exactly as you know, I completely follow here. You know, what is the trend and where will be the trading volume? You know, so you focus on a token generation event and you want to support creating liquidity. And as a market maker, we invest into these protocols as well. If I look at as a private person, me as an investor is completely different, because I think I was one of the first investors in Ethereum, also in the ICO already, and I invested a few times into Ethereum, and I'm still in there. You know, as a private investor, I'm actually probably, you know, at that time it looked like irrational. Now it seems like fine, but I never exit. You know, so I actually live off staking rewards, and so I was always looking into an ecosystem where I could identify myself with. So I've been always saying on stage that I believe that my kids, they will be holding currency that represents communities they can identify themselves with. So, and that is kind of rather the investment kind of how, that's the thesis how I privately invest. Is this the ecosystem I really want to spend my time with? Because I'm supporting them anyways, you know, and but it's completely different than kind of market maker and yeah.
Interesting that you share that, because, you know, if you manage your own sort of like money and, you know, you can make a much longer bet, right?
Yeah.
Like 10 years ish, and you're okay with that. But I think for most of the funds, because, you know, there's a fund time.
No, of course, you have to, when you fund, you have to rotate, and you're managing other people's money, and you know, you have a specific cycle. You need to think about an exit, but me as a private person, to be honest, I don't want to exit, because it's a natural kind. I want to spend my time with these people, with this ecosystem, you know. Interesting.
And, you know, so just want to touch on the trend part, right? Because I think you mentioned trend. I think this is for the rest of the panel as well. Does the fundamentals change based on the market condition, based on the trend that is happening in the market? Or you think that it's you have this set of solid fundamentals and you just need to follow them regardless of the market condition?
I think the answer is yes and no. In terms of yes, because I think crypto is, as Ed mentioned, I think narrative is always changing. So if the narrative is changing, means that either people are suddenly focusing on gaming, suddenly restaking, suddenly NFT or meme coin. With that trend, with that narrative, of course, there might be the short kind of term. However, when you're making an investment, fundamental means that some people look at the team, market, product, risk, and et cetera, et cetera. But when you evaluate the team, you might have to reflect a little bit of this current trend. So in terms of how you assess the team, whether this team is sensitive enough to make something like a coin that people might like, if the meme coin is kind of trend, or if the gaming is a trend, you might see that you might have to reflect that into the fundamentals. So that's yes, but no part is still in terms of team and product. It is simple enough. Whether team is mission driven, whether their purpose of doing this is in line with their history, or product wise, is this something that people gonna love to use? Do they have a strong community and that will support the team and projects either in bear market or bull market? So I would see the two sides is possible.
Interesting. Dani and
Sure. I mean, I don't think they changed. I think they stay the same throughout the cycles. The difference, I would say, is probably the valuations and the speed at which you have to do due diligence. I would say probably one of the things that really emerges during, let's say, a bull cycle is that there's some really fast opportunities where companies get created at a rate that is unheard of in the traditional space. And so a company that would have maybe taken 3 to 5 years to build under normal conditions gets spun up and springs to action in 1 or 2 months. And so those are things that you start to become aware of once you're in a cycle where you're trying to see if there are very interesting opportunities that certain teams are building that might be somehow relevant for the zeitgeist. Then those are things you also want to capture, and those emerge during that particular part of the cycle. But other than that, I think everything else stays the same.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Dani. I don't know that the buckets themselves change. Maybe I would focus on a slightly different area within those buckets depending on where the market is. So for example, in a bear market, I think evaluating founder motivation, while that is always important, it is especially important in a bear market where I need to basically ensure to a very high degree of confidence that this person will be around 2, 3, 4, 5 years if the cycle is that long. And so assessing why they're doing what they're doing and how powerful is that driver is important. I guess on the flip side, in the bull market, I would say asking more pointed questions around differentiation. Frankly, some of these first principles questions become even more important. Questions like, okay, because there's so much noise in a hot market. There's a lot of things that if you're not careful, it feels like it makes sense, but maybe it doesn't. And so I think asking these first principles questions becomes important. Things like, okay, how are you different versus the other 100 layer ones that are out there? Or to Dani's point, how does this crypto consumer application create a 10x better user experience versus its Web 2 peers? Basic stuff, but like I said, I think it's important in a market that there's a lot of noise and you need to separate signal from that noise.
Interesting. Cool. I think a lot of you mentioned about the new narrative and the new sort of trend in the market, but from the investor point of view, or from the fund that you're working at, how do you sort of identify what's the new trend, right? What's a practical way to do it? What are the indicators that you're looking at in order to confirm, okay, this is the new trend that we need to sort of double down on it? Can you share some insight?
So I actually, I volunteer as part of the East Denver team doing content curation. And part of that is actually because I'm very interested to see what's coming through and the ideas that people are putting forward. And I find that to be a really creative source of trending topics, new ideas, interesting founders, interesting concepts. And, other than that, I think for me, I'm always searching for really, really smart, great founders and listening to the ideas they've come up with and figuring out if there's some overlap in what we think is really cool. That for me, that's been sort of the most effective way of finding good startups and good ideas.
I think it's similar to Dani. So I think me, like going to conference and meeting up many different people, maybe 1 out of 10, maybe 1 out of 20, that you meet this smart people, a smart person who has very innovative idea, but very under discussed. And maybe that's kind of the founders that I want to follow up after the conference. And then you build your idea, you have a make-up thesis around it, whether that makes sense or not. That's how I think I've been trying to find the next investment opportunity. But that said, also I think crypto is very narrative driven still. So you have to understand big narrative, big trends by talking with your colleague, the fund managers, or even if you're a VC, you have to talk with the market makers, you have to talk with exchange, you have to talk with the KOL, because to basically have all different dots, and my job is basically connect the dots differently to find the new thesis based upon what is out there. So that's the second way I do so.
Yeah, it's interesting. Part of your question was scalable solutions, and I think all three of us will offer something that's not scalable. I also agree. I think speaking to young people generally, going out, speaking to Gen Z, and understanding their preferences and behaviors is one of the things that I found most instructive when it comes to distilling new trends. And I can give an example. One thing that's very topical right now on Twitter is this idea of financial nihilism. It's talking about more in the context of meme coins, etc. But they're basically saying, hey, because the American dream today is so much less attainable than it was before, people are turning to speculation as a means of changing their station in life. That is the thesis. It's an interesting one. But I would say you could arrive at the same conclusion much earlier if you simply go to Hongdae, speak to 5 people and ask them, why are you so interested in crypto? Which I've actually done, by the way. 2 of them said, who are you, you weirdo, get away. But the other, who answered the question in earnest, said something along the lines of, I feel honestly that if I don't go to one of the top 3 universities in Korea, I don't work in professional services or at one of the top 5 conglomerates, I am destined for a mediocre life. That is what I feel. And so I'm not just going to throw up my hands and give up. I'm going to try to do something different. And for me, that something different is speculation, and the best way to do that is crypto. Anyway, so I think speaking to young people is very instructive.
For a private investor, right? How do you do that?
So I mean, so the first thing that kind of struck me was the white paper of Bitcoin, and then the white paper of Ethereum. And so while Ethereum was built, I did a lot of research with the founders of Ethereum, and then it started from there. So majority of the team that actually wrote Ethereum, they all opened their own startups, and at the end of 15. So I remember, and that's when I moved to Berlin. And so Berlin was like the Bitcoin mecca for 3-4 years, and there was like 60 founders, and around these 60 founders, we were kind of doing a next abstraction on Ethereum. After Ethereum, there was a lot of startups that started to attack each kind of business vertical, and I did it myself with MetaWeb in the energy markets. And then each of these companies had an own foundation, and each of these companies, they tried to decentralize themselves. And again, most of the people that worked in this foundation started to make own startups again. So most of the kind of, also the Web3 Foundation that made Polkadot, most of the people that worked there then, left and started to make their own startups. And so by now we all kind of migrated to Lisbon from Berlin. And so there it's like, it's, to be honest, it's just hanging out with friends and talking with them, and what is the next abstraction layer, and we started very low level and we're slowly getting to reality. I mean, and yeah.
Interesting. And for the first time founders, if they are, really into in some sort of trend or narrative, how do they, what's your advice for them to sort of reach out to you, or basically because if something is become trendy, I think there are going to be tons of projects out there, right? What's your advice for them to really stand out?
Okay, so I think this is something I definitely experienced when I started my first company, which is that I spent a lot of time and energy building a really cool product that nobody wanted. And I think that one of my best pieces of advice is to really Focus on finding like a problem that you think is interesting, that you have a great way of solving, rather than a solution that's very cool for a problem that may or may not exist.
I think that's a disease in crypto, you know. So especially when we started
why I'm a
early
VC
low-level
now.
protocols, it was like, yeah, it was like it wasn't really sure for what, you know. Like let's build
You're
it.
like, are these really cool ideas?
Ethereum, you know, it's like we can do anything with it, you know. Like you feel like a hammer and everything looks like a nail. That was like 10 years ago. Yeah.
I think still, I mean, I can say don't just hop on the trend and build something on it. But as an investor, one thing I try to see a lot to the founder's assessment is whether the reason why you are doing this is something resonate with how you live your life in the past, something. So I think I really try to see the motivation of the founders, why you are doing this. Of course, doing meme coin project, you don't have to do the meme coin in the past, but there should be some personal reason, personal story, personal motivation, why they want to do X, Y, Z. So I don't really care whether hop on a trend or not, but I hope that founders do not do something that people said to you that is good, whether they really, from the heart, they are passionate about it.
Interesting. Augie, anything to add or?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe. So for me, it's you know, be bold. You know, just dare. You know, because that makes it interesting. You know, it's the conviction, as you say. You know, and you know, when Ethereum started, that was like, you know, we could there was this feeling we could literally reprogram the world. You know, make it much more truthful, you know, and so the whole Web3 mantra, I mean, nobody knew what we're going to do with it, you know. We just knew there was an unstoppable computer and we could do anything with it, you know. So it's like, so nobody was thinking about any, you know, but everything was imaginable, you know. So, but it was the conviction, you know. It was really deep conviction.
I think that conviction usually comes with when you really like believes it. So that's my passion I mentioned. Some people said conviction, price will go up. That's not a conviction. Conviction is you believe in something really hard. So whatever the act you do is in line with that conviction.
Yeah, actually, just riffing off what Ed said, I think also painting to your question, like painting the vision of what this market and product could be is important, especially if it's not trendy yet today, right? It reminds me a little bit of like Airbnb, which was an insane pitch if you think about it. Like, I'm gonna let a stranger go sleep in your house. Like at the time, it was crazy, right? But I think helping people sort of realize, bringing the investor along to help them understand what this could become, even though it's not there today, is important.
Well, for another example is actually the DAO. So I was actually deeply involved in the DAO, and the one that created the fork. And the simple goal there was we were just building a tool for ourselves because we wanted to build a decentralized VC, you know. And so it didn't work, but you know, it sparked a lot of inspiration, right? But it's really kind of build something that you want to have for yourself. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I think like from my own experience, I mean, I did the same thing, right? To spend time with the space, with everyone in the ecosystem, try to use a lot of the products in the space, right? And see which one that you are not happy with. And so, I mean, you can probably like identify a bunch of problems there, and you just need to pick the one that you sort of like, you know, like you're the most like frustrated with, right? And solve it. I think that's probably one way to sort of like do it and build your conviction. Cool. I think you all mentioned something called meme coin, right? So I think I asked a question to Vitalik last week, a couple of weeks ago in Hanoi during Eat Vietnam. I asked him, is meme coin good or bad for the space? And he didn't give me a straight answer. He said depends, right? So one, the question is, do you think the meme coin is good for the space? And two, how are you or your fund handling meme coin?
Like, okay, so I think it's absolutely important, you know, to have a humor in life, you know. So if you can't laugh about yourself, there is something wrong about you, you know. So and meme coins, this is like, you know, it's like on the one side, there is a lot of kind of there is so much, stupidity, degenerosity there, and then kind of this is kind of the fun part of the crypto side. And I look at it as lottery. It's like humanity needs lottery. And so that's why I share Vitalik's opinion on that. So there is a lot of meme coins there that I really like. Okay, this is like, it really smells like a scam. It's like there might be a rug pull there, but
And lotteries are regulated. There's like rules around this so that rug pulls are less likely, I guess. Because it's like, oh yeah, this is a lottery, but nobody wins except the random person that launched it.
Well, casinos, they're regulated, and they always win still, so... what I really love about this is, like, for me, it's like the expression of an underground culture, like the Marines of Chainlink, or each meme has their own kind of army that they build up, and it's fun, but to be honest, I didn't join any meme coin.
Yeah, I guess from an institutional point of view, because from the PA side, like, if you want to buy Geo Bowden, knock yourself out. But from an institutional lens, I think, it depends on your fund mandate, obviously, but if the question is like, can you make money as an institution investing in these things? I think you can, as long as you are very clear at the offset what it is, the game that you're playing. Is this a long-term, fundamentally driven VC-style investment, or is this a trade? And if it is a trade, then it is evaluated and treated as such, by which I mean, there is a exit threshold. There's a timeline for exit. There's catalysts that we're looking out for. And so I think that part is important when it comes to like these meme coins, et cetera, because they might be a good trade, but they might not be fundamentally based, but they might be a good trade. And I think where the rubber hits the road, or where this becomes challenging, I can speak for our organization, is holding that mindset throughout the duration of the investment becomes very challenging, where, especially if you're classically trained in the other discipline. Like we've seen instances where we're investing in something, we told ourselves at the beginning it's a trade, we're targeting a 5x in 2 months, these are the catalysts we're looking for, but then 2 months come by, we hit our target return, we're sitting in IC, and the sponsor's like, but what if it 5x's from here, which I think is natural, right? VCs are programmed to dream, to swing for the fences, to think big. And so holding that mindset true, trader versus VC, is very difficult to do, I think.
You know what, I would be curious, sorry, I would have a question to you. If you look at kind of the Dogecoin and dog with hat, or versus the apes, or kind of the NFTs, is that a difference for you? I mean, like Pudgy Penguins or The Rock, or this.
I'd be keen to get the broader panelists. I think some of these have more of like a community brand creation IP thesis behind it, and some are just straight memes. But on the specific assets you mentioned, I don't have a very strong view.
I think good or bad, I think it's a meme coin is natural. So it's something that we can avoid. And the second is, out of meme coin craze, what I see is this is power of community, if you take it as a positive. Only bad part is, because of this craziness, all the founders out there who's spending a lot of time to build a real product is get demotivated because all the people get the quick money. That's a bad part. But I think the phenomena-wise, I feel that this is a reflection of where our society is at right now. Maybe this is a reflection or expression of how the young people want to get together with someone else globally. Or maybe this is how potential the crypto market has to get the users with a certain part of narrative or memes. So I think that it's a natural, and somehow it's the part of the crypto. But I don't want the people think that this is how to make a money, and then the money should go to always the real builders who try to make a difference with the blockchain technology. So in that sense, I think it's not that great.
I think meme coins are probably like a bit like this season's NFTs. And, there's pros and cons to everything. would be really cool if maybe some of these meme coins went to fund charity. I'd be like, you know, you can speculate and also fund something useful. I imagine we'll soon find out where some of this funding went. But what I thought was actually really cool was that people that were not in crypto were reaching out to me to tell me about like the meme coins they were buying, and it had motivated them to actually onboard into this technology. And so they learned to use crypto wallets, they learned, you know, to figure out between exchanges, they learned to sign up. So I thought that was actually a very powerful motivator for onboarding of a new wave of users. And that actually can be like a really valuable side effect because, like, you know, once they get bored of trading the you know, the dogs with multiple hats, maybe eventually they make it onto some really cool like social-fi, you know, apps or something else. And I think that could be a really cool long tail.
Interesting. Yeah. I guess, you know, one thing that all the founders can learn from meme coins is, you know, how they engage with the community, how they build the community, right? And how they can potentially, like, you know, create a lot of energy from that. Yeah. I think we are running out of time soon, but probably, like, you know, the last question. What do you want to see the founders to build in the next, like, you know, 3 to 5 years, right? That you're not seeing yet?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it feels like this is for me now the third, fourth bull market or what. So I hope this is the thing where we finally touch, you know, the billions. So it really feels like we are now at the last layer, which divides us from, you know, that it really goes into the billions. Exactly what you're saying, like, you know, into the applications where we have millions and hopefully billions of users. Yeah. And I hope it as like I've invested into quite a lot of gaming companies through the market maker actually, and so we see so many games that go now from Web 2 into Web 3, and then that feels like, you know, it could come through gaming, you know.
Augie?
Yeah, similar. I think we do hope to see more experimentation at the application level. And it's a hard decision to make, I think, as a builder and frankly as an investor, just because there's a much cleaner, straighter path to a very large outcome, monetary outcome for yourself, if you just build another chain, or if you just employ this recursive logic that, well, this thing is valued at this, and so if I build something similar, mine should at least be valued this. It's a trap that we all fall into, but I do hope that some folks out there will decide to take a different path, and hopefully something comes of that.
So I started working in the space because I have a deep distrust of governments and institutions. And I genuinely believe that this technology is the counter to that. Yes. And so I don't think that ever you're going to see a corporation like, you know, a Facebook, like purposely, you know, go against its own business interests in order to do something that is more fair, more equitable, more open, more democratic, more open source, and definitely not at scale. And so I think that, like, there's going to be blockchain technology that'll be able to disrupt that and counter it, and in a crazy way, maybe like unionize consumers as strength against corporations or as a voice against government processes. And in this way, the smart contracts are going to enforce the social contracts that we begin with, or like the good intentions that we come in with and then change as the market shift or as the business conditions shift. And I'm hoping that at the core, like, there's going to be incredible entrepreneurs building new standards for the internet, and building new foundational technology that changes how everyone else builds on top of the internet.
I think I agree also. Maybe to be more specific, I think I'm excited about the DeFi on Bitcoin layer. And then 2 is real world assets, because I think a lot of institutional players, which I'm a little more experienced with, they're actually really like making a progress in this crypto space. And third, I think gaming and experiment the pure Web3 is amazing, which we will invest into too. But I think this year will be the first year that a lot of the Web2 gaming company is going to release the Web3 games. So that's something that I'm excited about.
Interesting. I think we have 30 seconds left, so let's do something controversial, okay? Bitcoin or Ethereum? You have to pick.
Obviously, Ethereum. Where's the controversy?
That's it.
Okay, with that, I think we can
Bitcoin on Ethereum.
Okay, Augie, you haven't spoken yet.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, I think with that we can thank all the panelists for all the insight and all the sharing. And thanks a lot everyone for staying with us until the very last minute of the panel. Yeah, awesome.